All right, here we go. Stock market technical analysis. Let's get into the trade ideas. I'm going to use the charts to show you where I think things are going. Hopefully, we're able to make some profit on the trade ideas. Drop me a thumbs up if you guys are finding value. Again, if you're interested in additional market insights, I've been putting out tons of trade ideas, many of them working out very nicely in the private member group. Link in the description below. You can always check it out. It's $5. YouTube takes a chunk of that, and you can cancel any month. So literally, it's like check it out for a month. It costs you $5. All right, not a big deal. Link in the description below on that one. Okay, triple Qs. This is our tech sector. We've got large cap tech earnings coming out today after the bell. Google and AMD are the big major players for the tech sector. And so the bigger thing that I'm looking at right now is we are still in the bearish rising wedge. All right, there it is. Bearish rising wedge, still in there. No sell signal. Negative divergence. All right, momentum has been dropping. So we are on lookout for a sell signal because the momentum tells us that likely a breakdown is going to come soon. And we're going to get that sell signal, which in case you're new, the sell signal comes on a breakdown of the wedge. All right, here's your support down here. And then when you break that support, that's your sell signal. Okay, widest part of the wedge would be our major target for this initial move, this initial kind of leg down. And to mark that out, you just kind of, this is how I do it. I just kind of take a line tool, draw the widest part of the wedge, and then basically you take that at the point of the breakdown. So I don't know where that is now because we haven't broken down, but we can anticipate that, you know, if it happens anytime soon, this is going to give us kind of a projected target down around 450, 850 or so. You can see the 200-day simple moving average kind of creeping up. So I think they come in together. I think the outcome of the, you know, if we get the sell signal, the outcome of the major move will likely be a move down to the 200-day moving average. Okay, that's the projected target for this initial move. Don't have a sell signal though. So with the earnings, the other thing that you could get, very, very possible. This is your all-time high right here in triple Qs. And we had that big red bearish engulfing candle marking at the top. I could see intraday. All right. I think it would be intraday, but I think, or, you know, like basically after the earnings, they'll pop this triple Qs up all the way up to here at about, 504-ish. Okay, it's going to mark a new all-time high in the intraday price action, and then I think they sell into that. Okay, I think regardless we would still close below the all-time high, and this will still hold as the top. So if I see a gap up into this trend line, you know, up into the top of the wedge, I think that's where the sellers show up and they smash that thing down, and you get probably a big bearish engulfing and maybe even a break of trend. And that sell signal, okay? It'd be a big move, but something like that. And if we don't get it tomorrow, let's say we gap up tomorrow into this trend line, watch whether we close. That's going to be key. If you close below that all-time high, even though you were up there intraday or in the morning, because it'll be in the morning, they'll pump it in the morning and everybody will feel they're going to suck in all the bulls early in the morning by gapping the thing up. And very likely that's going to create the liquidity for the big institutions to unload their large positions on in tech. Okay, they need that liquidity. To get that liquidity, you need to, you know, gapping things up can create momentum, you know, can create a lot of enthusiasm with retail that they can sell into. Okay, so that's the upside. It could go higher. Obviously, if you start just breaking out and if you get a close above there, it negates this as the all-time high, and that means we're likely going higher. Okay. But the bearish rising wedge pattern continues to tell me that we're going to break to the downside, regardless of whether we gap up in the morning after earnings. I think there's going to be selling either after the bell today and we gap down. Okay, that's one possibility. Or if they gap it up, I think the selling comes out in the regular session tomorrow or the following day. Could be kind of muted tomorrow. Maybe they'll gap it up and just hold it up and maybe close at the all-time high. And then selling should show up. All right, that's what the chart tells me. Doesn't have to be, but that's what I'll be on watch for. So that's the triple Qs. And really, I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to cover most of the large cap tech stocks. Tesla, this one, I did point this out to the private member group already, But on the daily chart and the weekly, we're in a downtrend in Tesla, so you can see resistance, 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 breakout above, but look where we're at right now. We're back below that trend line. So I suspect they're going to probably hold it right around this trend line and keep everyone guessing, is this a breakout and a back test, or is it a fake out, a false breakout, and then we're going to fail? Likely a lot of that's going to depend on the large cap tech earnings like in Google and stuff. So it's still a little too early. I'm leaning towards a false breakout. I think, again, trend traders, bulls, long-term bulls, they always talk about, the trend is your friend. Okay, well, in that case, the trend is down. Okay, the trend has been down since November of 2021. We're making lower highs. Okay, so the trend is down. If the trend is your friend, then the downside is the main trend. Okay, so the fireworks start tonight, obviously, with large cap tech. Here's the SPY, bearish rising wedge. We've already broken down. We already have a sell signal on the break of the wedge right here. But we could back test. That's possible. So if they gap this thing up and essentially it's all going to come down to Google for the most part, Alphabet. Then you might gap up into resistance, all right, somewhere right up in there, put in a new divergent high and back test that trend line. That would be an objective area to short at. If you see that, if you're gapping up into resistance, it's objective to take a short. Not to go long on the gap up, but to take a short on the gap up into resistance. Okay, that's one possibility. Or, this is the sell signal. It's been floating, waiting for earnings, and it's just going to gap down. I'm kind of leaning, honestly, towards the gap down. That's the way I'm leaning. So yeah, that's that on the S&P 500. XLP, this is consumer staples, so kind of your blue chip stocks. There's nothing, this isn't an exciting sector. You've got kind of steady eddy stocks in here, but you can see here on the daily chart, support, support, support. There's lots of reactions to validate this as a trend line, support, and your sell signal came, 2 days ago, break of trend, little back test, gap down this morning and holding lower. So this one, the trend's broken, all right? This should go lower, all right? Rallies will get sold into. You can have rallies, but they should get sold into as you trend lower. First target, profit target, where I think this one's heading is down to this 79. It's about 79.43-ish. It's like this gap fill right here would be the first target. So a little bit more downside on that one. The major player on this one is Costco. Costco, Walmart, and Procter & Gamble are the three kind of heavily weighted ones. However, this sector, XLP, those only are about a 10% weighting in there. So those three stocks make up about 30%. It's way different than like triple Qs where you've got like Nvidia, Microsoft, and Apple making up well over 50%. So on this one, Costco, uptrend line, all right? There it is. Not as many reactions, but still enough to validate it. And there's your breakdown. I think today's a breakdown, okay? Now you did hit you can see horizontal support. I've got it kind of marked out. There's some decent horizontal support there. There's a reaction from the past. And we hit that to the T, and you're seeing some buyers step in. But in general, the trend line has been broken. We're now battling with that horizontal support. So from what I can tell, the best you could probably hope for is backtesting and drifting sideways. But ultimately, I do think this breaks to the downside. The momentum on this has been dropping off. So could put in another divergent high, but you can see we've just been dropping in momentum. While price is going higher, we're now starting to stall out. All right, we're starting to stall out sideways, and so I think we can hang out sideways for a little longer, but ultimately should break down. Next sell signal on this one, because the trend line's now broken, will come on a break of the lows here at 873, and then again I think we push right down to about 837.58, 60, somewhere right in there, and then down here at 788, 788.80. Okay, so that's Costco and XLP. Visa is reporting today after the bell as well, so that's one of the top three in the XLF. a major player in the XLF. You've got Berkshire Hathaway, Visa, and JP Morgan. This will give a clue into the consumer spending as well. Visa does. So it gives an idea of the health of the consumer. Ultimately, consumers, it's a little tricky, but sometimes you'll see credit card spending up when the consumer is becoming less healthy. That's generally good for Visa because they obviously earn those transaction fees and interest on balances. Okay, so what do we have here on Visa? I don't see anything that's really telling me it's a short. There's no real negative divergence on this one. You can see we've got momentum dropping for sure, but we also have kind of lower price here. So it's not really a divergent high. We're in ultimately kind of no man's land. So it could go either way. I'm not going to trade it. I could see Visa gapping up, putting in a new divergent high on positive earnings, or ultimately gapping down. The divergence doesn't give me a clue. So personally, just hands off on that one. If it's negative, though, this is the play that I think is a little bit better when it comes to the financials. FITB, this one, a very clear chart to me. You've got a bearish rising wedge, a very well-defined, mature bearish rising wedge that is ready to resolve one way or the other. And you do have very clear and obvious negative divergence. So ultimately, this is telling me that we're heading lower. The widest part of the wedge is here. That'll give you your major target on the breakdown point. And again, I've got it marked in red right there. That line right there is about the major target because I think we're going to break soon. So I do see downside on that one. From right now, about a 29% drop. That's from right now. And then, depending on when you get the sell signal, it might not be quite as much. I'm personally stepping in a little early. I'm going to take a half position on this one ahead of the Visa earnings. This one's earnings is out of the way, so I don't have to necessarily worry about earnings reporting for FITB. But again, however, the Financials Act, this should affect this one as well. It's a good setup. All right, it's a 10 out of a 10 in terms of a setup. It's not actionable yet, so if you're more conservative, because again, they could gap this thing up, they could run this thing up. That's completely possible, and that's why I'm not loading up on it. I'm only going to take a half position. I'm anticipating the breakdown, and then if we do get the breakdown, I'll have a really good entry I can add to that for a full position. Okay, so you guys do what you want on that. I told you what I'm doing, and again, could be wrong. Nobody gets all the trades right, so. All right, that's that one. Home builders. This one played out very nicely for us. Here's your home builder. Here's your XHB. Again, another sector that has triggered a sell signal. This one I think has some more downside, but we just hit or very close to the first level of support right there at about 111.14. You can see lots of reactions through there. Very close. Buyers are stepping in, so I think we could rally. Who knows how far? At least probably a gap fill. Could rally for a little bit before the next move lower on home builders. And again, the major target of this bearish rising wedge here with negative divergence is down here at 105.30. So I do believe there's more downside, but probably a bounce first. And then ITB is your home construction ETF. So this has a lot of the a lot of home real estate related things. And this one just hit support. All right. So we're bouncing off support. So again, that's why I'm looking for a bounce in the home builders. This morning, I put out a post to the private member group on the trade that I've really been keyed in on and been talking to. This is what I've talked in the private member group about it, as well as the videos. But here's PHM. Again, negative divergence was in play, bearish rising wedge. Widest part of the wedge for this one is about right there. And that sets you up for the major target of about 120.77. And that's exactly where we gapped down to this morning. So I took profit, closed out all my position in this PHM this morning. Very nice trade. Again, we had a sell signal. You had a big gap down right here. So if you got it in the beginning, you basically made a quick 12% profit in about 5 days. again, if you look at the upside, how long that took you to basically make that, if you bought it here, it took you a while, or even if you bought it right here, I mean, you're talking about time frame wise, it took you 46 days. So 46 days wiped out in 6 days. That's the downside. All right, that's why when I put out videos, the bulls troll me day in and day out, because things grind higher most of the time, and when they sell off, it wipes out all those gains quickly. So when I'm right, a day like today, you can see wiped out weeks and weeks of trash talk from the bulls. Let's just put it that way. But we're out of that trade, profitable and out of it. And then if you went with the one that I talked about in my video yesterday, which I didn't personally trade that one, I was in this PHM one, but pretty heavy position, so worked out nicely. The DHI was the one I talked about with the head and shoulders pattern. So here's, there's your head and shoulders. Go back and watch the video. Again, negative divergence. It was basically sitting right there at support. And I said if I had to guess which way it's going to go after earnings, I would guess down, because the chart is set up bearishly. And we're kind of sitting at support with the head and shoulders. I suspected we gap down. The measured target for the head and shoulders is about, you go to here, down to the neckline, and then from the point of the breakdown. And it basically sets you up to, if I look at the measured target, I have to actually go about there. And it's 164.26, and you can see that's basically where we're at right now. So, but this thing sold off huge. It opened down, way down, and well below the 200. Again, great time to take profit. Usually, when you're way up here and you gap way below the 200, you're probably at least going to get some dip buyers stepping in. And the major target was hit, and just everything was hit. So it made sense to take profit on that, as well as the other home builder. And the fact that ITB was at support, it just was clear and obvious that we needed to exit those short trades and take our money and run. But this one, if you took it at the open, you were profitable by 15%. So nice job, whoever took that one. Another kind of Visa one is MasterCard. The chart looks a lot cleaner to me on MasterCard. On this one, you've got this uptrend line here. You broke, you back tested, and you put in a new high. All right, a former high, but it's a divergent high. Momentum, we're losing momentum on that one. So I like that as a short. Now, if Visa comes out with strong earnings, this one's likely going to trade up in sympathy as well. So you could get kind of a new high up in here, maybe around, this trend line basically. Most likely would be a new divergent high that will get sold into. So that's possible. That's kind of the upside I see. And then the downside is pretty big. I mean, the upside, I think, is about a 3.5% gain on the upside. The downside, I really see it coming down to the 200-day moving average. Or this former reaction high is also a target. I think that makes sense right in here. So that would be probably your first target on the downside, which would be about a 4% downside. So not a great risk-reward ratio right here where it's at. Again, the best short was on the full back test right in here as we were trading the trend line. And that gives you a little bit better, that would put the upside from that position about 2%, and the downside, if you took it from there, at about 5%. So better than a 2-to-1 ratio on that one, about 2.5 to 1. So that's a good risk-reward ratio. Again, it's kind of no man's land here, not the best. So, all right, that's what I got on that one. NTR, this is an active long trade. Again, just kind of back testing this support line. It's been testing it for 5 days or so. 47.30, no change. We're just kind of sitting there at support. So it's objective to go long in this area for a push up. You've got bullish divergence. And so, yeah, that's it on that one. Still looking good for a long trade with stops kind of slightly below. You got to allow for little whips because you can see here, look, they whip it down just for the buyers to step in. So I'd probably put my stop just slightly, like really, I would say a daily close below a daily close below this 46.40 is probably the stop point. I think you stop out on a daily close below there. Abercrombie and Fitch, ANF. I know they had some headlines recently, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the stock. This one, I do believe this one is long-term trending lower. This big spike high right here, I think that was the high for a while. and I do believe we will trend lower. But you can see we're kind of at support right now. Support, 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 and they dipped it below intraday, but they're stepping in and buying it. So probably going to bounce here and continue to kind of coil within this triangle. And then we'll break one way or the other. A break to the upside would be bullish. A break to the downside would be bearish. I favor the break to the downside. But again, there's no real divergences in play that tell me it has to break to the downside. So as of right now, being that it's sitting there at support, yeah, I think you probably bounce here. This one, I pointed it out, crowd. It's okay. You do have pretty... it's okay. It's really actually not my favorite because in general I've got momentum moving higher. I do have a bearish rising wedge, and I do have a sell signal, but there's really no volume on that sell signal. It's pretty muted volume. So, and there's no follow through either. So, I actually I'm gonna pass on this one. Just the chart's just not the best setup. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass on that one. If you want me to follow up because you're in it, then I can, but it's not the cleanest. Could have a false breakdown and maybe go on to fill this gap up here and maybe even go higher. What I would look for, I think, what I want to see, if it's going to, let's say it gaps up and fills this gap right here, puts in some sort of a divergent high, and then we see some selling, a rejection candle, that would be a better setup and a better sell signal. AMD, again, semiconductor. This one is coiling, okay? There's no real distinct direction that it's kind of a 50-50. It's a gamble. I see this coil here, and we're just right in the middle right now. No real divergences to key off of. I mean, we've got momentum coiling as well. So because there's no clear, distinct technicals in the chart telling me which way, then I would definitely just kind of stay off this one, stay off the semiconductors until we start clearing these out. These might, there's just no clear direction quite yet in this one. And Nvidia is a short setup for sure, because you can see Nvidia, we're making new highs right here above the former high, but they're divergent highs. We are diverging. All right, PPO's turning down. It's very probable that this breakout here is going to fail, but you have earnings coming out in a couple of weeks on Nvidia, so it might just they might just continue to kind of grind it higher and diverge into earnings, and then we're going to break down. I think we're going to break down either basically around the earnings time frame, either before or after, but we still have a few weeks, so no sell signal in Nvidia. And then ultimately on Nvidia, you've got the major trend line down here. All right, this is your big support line down here in red. So for a major sell signal, you have to break that trend line. So if we're going to grind around and then come down to the trend line, bulls should be sitting there trying to defend that. A break of that trend line is the definitive sell signal in Nvidia that should ultimately kind of be lights out for Nvidia for the next months to year, for a while. Okay, a trending trade. But yeah, that's all I have on Nvidia. That's all I got, guys. There's obviously a lot more. I put out several things in the private member group, and I'll continue to look for stuff. But drop me a thumbs up. Feel free to join up. Link in the description below. Catch you guys on the next one.